Pizza guy.
You're not pizza. Who are you guys?
Road trips. Today on Road Trips, we take a step back in time to check out the historic town of Aurora, Oregon. Vehicle for this episode, 1991 Honda Civic. And cast for this edition, myself, Todd Hilton, and behind the wheel, Mr. Mark Johnson. The maps are out and the camera's rolling, so now, let's hit the road. And hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Nowhere Videos Road Trips. I'm Todd Hilton.
And I'm Mark Johnson.
And in this edition, we'll be taking you to the historic town of Aurora, Oregon, where we're going to visit the Aurora Colony Museum, which I hear is a very interesting place, according to our Road Trips Bible. Dun, 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 dun. And a very historic place, very large place, as I understand. It's a series of buildings that are all here on one site, and each one of them has a little bit of the town's history, different collections of antiques and other items of interest. So we're going to check that out. We're starting our trip here. Actually, I believe this is technically West Union.
Yeah.
Or Western Union or something like
right.
that.
Right. Can I get some money, please?
Yeah. We need money.
Yeah.
Send as much as you can.
Yes.
So with that, we're going to hop in the car and we're going to take Highway 26 and we're going to get going. All right, folks, we are off. We're still in the Western Union area.
Yeah.
Just about to jump onto Highway 26, known locally as the Sunset Highway.
Yes.
And
Very good.
very good, sir. Been a lot of construction going on through this area here. Just in the last few years, just incredible how much it's changed. I mean, anyone who'd seen this a few years ago and had not seen it since, I don't think you'd recognize it.
No.
I mean, housing developments and industrial sites going in, commercial buildings, I mean, huge complexes. Yeah.
It's a pretty complex situation.
Yeah. Damn, man, they're really tearing that up.
Yeah, they are. This side, too.
Wow. If I didn't know better, I'd say they're actually widening the highway.
I think they are. I think it's going to be like 6 or 8 lanes or something. Well, it's needed to be done. It's needed it.
Yeah, well, for as much traffic as comes through here on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm sure glad I don't have to drive this to work every morning.
Amen, brother.
I'm perfectly happy with the 15-minute commute that I got.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, at least for the time being, anyway. We've actually been very fortunate the last few trips that we've taken.
Yeah.
We've had some really, really nice weather, which is a good thing because at this time of the year that we're taping, we're going to run out of it here eventually. We're here at late summer.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get in a few more trips before the weather turns against us. Turns against us.
Powerball, $10. Wow.
Wow. We'll have to buy me a ticket.
Yeah, no kidding. I've never won.
Things clear at $10.
I'm going to wait a couple weeks till it hits 20.
You'll spot me 10? That's great. Amish Furniture Gallery? I've never seen that before.
I haven't either. That's just kind of...
I don't know. It seems kind of wrong to me.
Yeah.
Well, even Amish are cashing in on this
on this furniture business.
Development.
Yeah. It's just wrong, man.
It's just wrong.
Hey, we can always hit the Krispy Kreme.
We're there.
There's one right here.
Yeah. There. How long's that for? Yeah.
3 or 4 months.
I was gonna say it can't be that old because I don't remember seeing it there. Well, folks, as we were saying earlier, glad we don't have to drive this on a regular basis, because this sucks.
Yes, it does. And not in a good way.
And the thing is, it's like, yeah. And the thing is, it's like late morning.
Yeah,
It's
rush
not
hour.
even
Rush hour should be well over.
Yeah, you would think so, because it's not, it's not 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's also not 5 or 6 at night.
Right.
Why does it get this way? I don't know, this is people that like work at noon or something. They go in for a nooner or something.
There you go.
So now what? We link up from here, eventually go on to 217.
Right.
And then 217 to I-5.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. At least that's the plan.
That's the plan, Stan. That is, if we could ever make it that far.
Right. Whose idea was it to take this route?
I'm not sure what his name.
Of course, actually, it was kind of a combined effort because you suggested it. And I was like, oh, sure, let's go that way. Hoop, hoop, hoop.
Yeah. You approved it.
I approved it.
As president and CEO of Road Trips, you approved it,
Yeah.
so
it's kind of both our fault. I mean, the only thing is...
yeah, but mostly yours.
That's mostly your fault. The thing is, we've never actually shown this stretch of road in an episode of Road Trips, to my knowledge.
We get 17 and 17B. What happened to 17A?
I don't know.
All right.
You got left off somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, folks, sorry about the backed up trip here as we rear end the back of this Foster Farms truck.
Yeah.
Chicken trucker.
That's what he is, all right.
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose I'd rather drive truck for him than work in the factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with that statement 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're approaching the turnoff for Cedar Hills Boulevard. We're approaching the cutoff for Cedar Hills Boulevard. So you get there, you stop, get out, cut off your Cedar Hills. Thank you.
Get back in your car, continue driving.
Yeah. Woo-wee, smells like tar. Wasn't that the secret ingredient in kryptonite?
Yes. Yes, I think it was.
It was. Wasn't this 3 lanes originally? Or has it been 2?
I think you're right. I think it was 3,
Well,
but
yeah,
I think...
look, if you see, if they've like sandblasted like
Yeah.
the line like here, and then over,
Yeah.
over there you can see the, yeah.
Okay, this is freaking ridiculous, man. We ain't hardly moving very fast. I'm gonna pull down my window.
Okay, folks, during the course of this trip, even before we started taping, we've already gotten stopped, what, a couple times now?
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess at least this line is moving, unlike the one going up Cornelius Pass. We were at a dead stop for, what, 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Could have been longer. I guess it could have been a lot worse, but, as I've said it before and I'll say it again, we're Road Trips. We shouldn't have to stop for crap like that.
Exactly. Flash a badge, say, hey, Road Trips.
We're Road Trips.
Oh, well, go on.
Oh, well, go on through. All right, you know what we haven't done yet in the trip here? Let's go to the map. We are now on the junction from 217, going off of the Sunset Highway. And so now, technically, are we going south?
Yes.
Okay. South on 217. We're in the Beaverton area here. Just passing the Max train transit system. There's a big pile of something over there.
Yeah. Got that right.
That's great.
That's the funniest thing I've seen lately on television. Of course, I ain't watched television for like 5 years, so I really don't know what's going on. But
Sholsbury Road.
Wahoo Raceway. Hell yeah. I can't fit into their cars though. It really sucks.
Yeah.
I went and got my license and everything, and then I couldn't fit in the car. Like, jeez.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
That sucked.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Good.
Yeah, what's so good about that?
Tell you what though, he's gotta be making bank.
Yeah,
Or as a wireless guy.
Oh, well, yeah. And all that walking he does.
Oh yeah. And one of the most recognizable catchphrases on
the planet.
Yeah.
Now, see, I used to work out here too.
Oh, that's right.
Long time ago. Early 90s, in fact. Like 90 or 90. In fact, it was like 1990, I think. 89, 90, I think.
Was it Intel?
No.
There was something like
place
that.
called, no, actually it was a die casting plant called TBT.
Oh, okay.
They were off of 72nd. You used to be
I
able
guess
to
I
see
never
them
heard
here.
about that one.
Dun, 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 dun. Minimum wage. Yeah. Whoa. I don't like the ruts in this friggin' highway, man.
All right, folks. We're continuing on here. We are now on I-5 South.
Woohoo!
Let's go to the map. Show you we're right here. I-5 South. We actually don't have too much further to go. Aurora is actually kind of on the way to Salem, but it's before Salem and it's actually before Woodburn. So we don't actually have that much farther to go. That's great. You guys are stupid. So actually, according to our map, which I just happen to have here, Aurora is. It looks like it's before Woodburn. It's also before Salem, but it's after Wilsonville, which many of you locals know as the home of fries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
French fries.
French fries. French fried electronics. So you are here. How do I know we're here? It's past Wilsonville. It actually looks like Aurora is not right on I-5. It's just off of it. And we're actually just approaching North Wilsonville. I didn't know there was a North Wilsonville. I mean, you see the sign there, but
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't realize it was big enough to have a North Wilsonville.
Guess so. Well, I guess when you got a fries electronics.
Yeah, you gotta have two sections of town there.
Logic Central. Well, Logic General, never mind.
I
Logic.
don't know, you imagine a lot of dumb people work there?
Wait.
Yes, I'd like to apply for a job.
Wait.
I don't know, that's just what I imagine.
Yeah, no kidding. Is this still Tektronix here?
We hire dumb people. That's what I'm thinking of, Tektronix.
Yeah.
You worked at it.
Yeah, been there, done that too.
Yeah. Now what did you do there?
I was in shipping and receiving. Mostly shipping.
Yeah.
Not as much receiving.
Shipping and fondling?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Aha! Aurora, second right. That wasn't that far at all. Hell, I can do that.
Boone Bridge over the Willamette River. The mighty Willamette.
Yes. They even got golf out here.
Oh yeah, it's big time over here. You got country clubs in this area.
Yeah. So that would be this one here.
Yeah, see, that was your first right.
Second right,
This is your
okay.
second right.
Okay, folks, we are taking exit 282A. This actually points to Canby and Hubbard, but it's actually the same general area as Aurora. right, Aurora is not that big of a town. It's one of the original towns in the state, if I understand correctly.
Huh.
Oh, one more time. Let's go to the map here. I don't know the exact name of this highway, but by the time this show is edited, we'll know.
Yeah.
And we'll be putting it up on the graphics there for you. I've seen that sign before, but it was like out on
I-5, yeah. Ready Turf Farms.
So they like grow
They grow
AstroTurf or something?
Well,
no, AstroTurf is fake, isn't it?
Yeah, they grow AstroTurf, Todd.
Sorry.
Good one. Hey.
Good one.
Good one. I'm assuming we need to take a Roscoe. Aurora
No.
next left.
That would be a Louis. Aurora, 1 mile. 1 miles away. Okay, we are darn near there.
Darn near. Well, this is one of the largest. This is like the turf growing capital of the world, I
Really?
think. Yeah.
So then they just, cut it up into sections and they ship it out
Yep.
and they use it, well, I guess they would use it for like newly constructed buildings and stuff like that when they want to get the landscaping done. And quickly now.
Take a torch to these permanent records quickly now.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. We should be almost to Aurora.
Aurora?
Aurora?
Aurora? Aurora? Aurora?
Airport Road. Entering Aurora, population 614.
National Historic District.
Alrighty.
Aurora.
Oh yeah, that was the other big thing about Aurora. It's basically it's listed as a national historic place. I believe it's the only one in Oregon
Yeah.
where the entire town is registered as a historic district. Cornerstone Gallery, and we gotta be close. Wow. Just looking around town, I mean, you can tell. I mean, it's just,
Looks like time stood still.
yeah, no kidding. This is cool.
Yeah, there's the cars.
Time Antiques. Old Aurora Colony Museum.
This
That
way.
away. Okay. Yeah, look at this, man. There's like every building.
That's true. Yeah, there we go.
All right. You're here.
Yeah.
All right, folks. With that, I would say we have arrived. Watch out for the potholes, man.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say time's pretty much stood still except for those PT Cruisers over there.
Right. Which kind of throw you off. But
Yeah.
don't let those fool you.
Don't let those fool you. That's one of them 1857 models of the PT Cruiser.
Yes.
You thought they were a new thing.
Yes.
Alright.
This is gonna be cool. Alrighty, folks, we have arrived. Alright, folks, we are on the back side of the museum building here. And this was actually the ox barn owned by the family that settled this area here. And that was, when that say that was built?
1862.
1862.
Yeah. It was actually remodeled as a museum in 1966, I believe.
So even as a museum, been here a long time. Yeah. And several buildings that got here on the site. This one here, let's see, this is the Steinbach Pioneer Cabin, donated to the Historical Society back in 1969. And as we understand, this building here was actually moved from the riverside Did she say about 3 miles away or so?
Yeah, 3 miles north of here on the Willamette River is where it was originally settled. Wow. Check that out. The gravestone.
Oh, wow.
John A. Steinbeck, born September 14th, 1788.
Alrighty. What do we got, Mark?
This is actually one of the early versions of what we would now call a duplex, Todd.
Really?
Apparently, this is what's known as grandfather's entrance, and the story goes that Frederick Miley, Mrs. Steinbach's father, came to live with the family at a later time. To accommodate his needs, a lean-to addition with its own entrance was added. This turned the cabin into what we now call a duplex. This was the grandfather's entrance. Originally, there was a wall at the back of his room that separated his living quarters from the rest of the family. In that wall was a door that allowed him to enter and join the family in the main cabin. So that's why this looks a little bit different than the original log cabin.
Huh.
But quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and
It sounds like we may have a chance to go inside here. So immediately behind us, we have, I don't know if you'd call this the stable or a corral or what have you.
parking garage.
Parking garage. I don't know. One of them.
Beautiful old sleigh.
Oh, yeah.
That's your wintertime SUV there, folks. That's your 1800s version of an SUV. That'll get you through the snow.
Yes, it will.
Horsepower was
Probably 2.
varied. You know, it could have been 2, could have been 4. You never
Right.
know. Yeah. But it was actual horsepower.
Yeah, it was actual horse.
Actual horsepower. Yes. Same thing with your 4-wheel drive wagon here.
Right.
Covered wagon.
Okay, and on the other half of the grounds here, we're looking at, we've got looks like the Emma Wakefield herb garden. You got quite a bit in it. So much I don't even know if you could walk through this.
Probably not, Todd.
They've got signs of what's in the garden here. A couple things. There's one thing called lovage and English thyme are 2 of the things in the garden there.
You can smell.
Oh,
what's
yeah.
in the garden too. I'll tell you. That's a good scent to it.
Oh yeah, we got a looks like we got a bird bath / sundial out there, and we are right about at noon or just a little after.
This is the Steinbach cabin. The Steinbach family who lived here built it as a temporary home while they established their farm in the Willamette Valley. As you can see, the ceiling is quite low. And the reason for that is not because people were shorter in those days, but actually because since they had to heat it with a fireplace, it was much better if they had the low ceiling and kept the heat down where they were.
Right.
The parents slept in this room, the children slept upstairs in the loft, and this was the sole size of their original home here in the Willamette Valley. Later, Mr. Steinbach built an addition to the back, which had a kitchen, and is amply provisioned with not only furniture, but it has everything that you would need to be self-sufficient in the terms of cooking and making all of your own food. A little later than that, he also added a bedroom over on one side, and if you'll come with me, I'll show you where they've added a very interesting possession from the elder Mr. Steinbach.
Watch your hand, Mr. Johnson. Oh, it steps down a little bit there.
Wow.
Oh, a lot more room in here.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Get some shots of this as we go along.
Okay, and the whole thing wraps around into the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. It didn't look that way from the outside.
Originally, there was a partition here, and then later on, when Mrs. Steinbach's father became a widower, they asked him if he would like to come and live with them. And he said yes. He thought he could do that. He thought he could be a help around the farm. But before he did that, he was going to make himself a new bed. Now this is Grandpa's bed, with Grandpa's picture over the bed. And you can tell that Grandpa was a very tall, very skinny man. You betcha. He even had his own entrance and was quite an independent gentleman. Now all the things that you see here were made by members of the colony. This, for example, is called a spool bed, and because it looks like a whole row of spools standing next to each other. And these are a trademark of the Aurora colony. They made a great many spool beds. Over here, what we have is called a dough box. And the dough box is particularly interesting because they didn't have the good yeast that we have today. So they had to take natural yeast, which falls out of the air. Spores of yeast live in the air. And the spores would fall into a big container. Mrs. Steinbach would probably have had a big jug with a wide mouth, and she would put some sugar and flour and a little bit of water in it and make kind of a slurry. And then she would expose it to the air. And when it started getting all bubbly, then she would taste it, because there are different strains of natural yeast, just like we have different strains of apples and so on.
Right.
And if it tasted all right to her, then she would put in more flour and more sugar and let it grow. When she made bread then, she took that out in scoopfuls and added the rest of the bread ingredients, but it was very slow rising. So in order to have it rise well, it was placed in this box with a tight lid on it, and it rose at least all night, sometimes for 24 hours, before it was formed into loaves, and then it was allowed to rise again and baked in a communal oven. We had big communal ovens here, and you had an assigned day when you took yours in to be baked. This is called a dry sink. We have another very nice dry sink over in the Krause house. And of course it's a dry sink because you had to carry in the water to do the dishes and so on. But that is where you did the dishes. When I first came here as a volunteer and saw this sled, I thought it was inappropriate, because I've lived here in Oregon since '75, and we've never had a winter when I thought you could use a sled. But I had an extremely elderly gentleman, he was almost 100 years old, who came on a tour one day. He said, "Oh yes," he said, "I remember when my two cousins walked across the Columbia River on the ice." And that was, I think he said, you'd have to check this, but I think he said it was something like 1903 or something.
I'm thinking, because my grandmother told me, well, in fact, I think she was born in 1906, but she told me about times like that.
Yeah.
Back in those days where it froze over solid enough to drive a car across the Columbia River.
Across the Columbia or the Willamette, anyway. Yeah. Most children think that people cross the plains in a huge, big covered wagon. Those are called Conestoga wagons, and they were used back east where there aren't the big mountains that we have here, and also where the roads were much more established. It would have been extremely difficult to pull those Conestoga wagons across our mountains and so on. So this is much more similar to the wagons that were used in terms of size and capacity and so on. And were much easier to manage on a rough terrain. The reason that the colony was established here was because on the Pudding River there was already a grist mill for grinding grain and a lumber mill. And so Dr. Kyle, who founded the colony, felt that this would be an ideal spot for the Aurora colony. And so we still have a pair of the old used millstones here. And this is the wash house. A number of people would have shared the use of this building. It had a very large fireplace with a good draw so that you could heat big cauldrons of water, like the one that's down here, and it would heat reasonably rapidly. And you could also hang pots on the trammel if you were cooking jams, jellies, etc. Oddly enough, in some ways, this is one of the most interesting buildings of the lot because people did so many things in it. Of course, you had a wash tub, and washing, needless to say, was not done terribly frequently. And since we live in Oregon, where the weather isn't always like it has been this summer, people dried the clothes indoors. So you had poles to hang articles from, and also there's an attic so that you could hang more clothes upstairs. You used a flat iron, which had to be heated on the stove in order to do any ironing, and you had plungers to plunge up and down, and you probably had at least 2 of these big wash tubs. One would have had soapy water and the other one would have had rinse water. And I have to confess, I'm old enough to remember doing that with my mother. And I got to turn the wringer because I was a good, responsible girl. Pigs were always very useful in the 1800s. And as the children like to say, they fed the pigs all summer with scraps from the table and cleanings from the garden. In the fall, however, the pigs were slaughtered, so the children say we feed them in the summer and they feed us in the winter. After you've taken all the hams and you have smoked the sausage and had the pork chops and so on, all the pieces of meat that were left over are taken into the kitchen and chopped, and then spices and so on added. And at that point, they were put in a big can like this. Now the pig's intestines were saved, they were thoroughly washed, and they were fastened to the end of this spout. The meat and all the seasonings went into the can. And then you leaned down on the plunger and the meat came out, and the pig intestines would be all full of the chopped meat. Then you took pieces of string and you tied them in little short segments, and then you boiled them, and then you hung them in the smokehouse, and that was how you made sausage for the winter time.
Makes sense.
Isn't that pretty neat?
Yeah.
And just as an aside, I always get a kick out of this. Women wore so many clothes, and I mean it really, so many clothes, that they had crotchless pants.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Really?
Well, you stop and think about it. You got all this stuff, and you got 3 petticoats. And it was too hot today to wear all my petticoats. You know, and you have all of that to cope with. I mean, it's a heck of a lot easier. You know, men shouldn't have everything easy. Golly sakes. People like this never wasted anything.
Right.
Oh, no.
And a great many of the scraps that they had went into making quilts. And the colony, incidentally, has a big quilt show every year. And they never wasted anything, and so they made quilts. And then if the piece was too small to be used in a quilt block, if they could make strips out of it and fasten the strips together, they were all made for rag rubs. And these were all woven at home.
Wow.
And we still make some of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still
Is that-
we
is that
got
how-
a bunch of those at home.
Is this how you get the term crazy quilts? Because of the different scraps? Is that why they would call them
Yes,
a
but
crazy
this
quilt?
is not a crazy quilt. This one's called a log cabin.
Okay.
And log cabin quilts were made with a square in the middle.
Oh,
in
okay.
in the this one was actually a gift for me as a Christmas present. So she made the center white like snow. But in the east, if it's made with a black center, it means that it is an accepted spot for the Underground Railway. And they would hang the quilt out a window or over a fence post to show that it was safe for slaves to come in and ask for something to eat.
Huh.
Ordinarily,
You know, I
other
think
than that, they have
That
a red.
story
red center.
sounds familiar. I think I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for the slaves to come
I
in.
don't think I ever have.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay, and now we're at the Krause house.
This is the crafts house. Now, this house itself was an original colony house. They did not have curtains on the windows. It was very plain, But the family who owned it, of course, went on living here. And so by the time you got into the late 1880s, early 1890s, people had decided that they were going to be in the mainstream of American living. The colony itself as an entity had been dissolved in 1878. And so that's why you see this house with wallpaper and other niceties. But it's a very handy and well-built house. For example, on both sides of that fireplace, there are cupboards.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shoot, wouldn't you know I couldn't get that one open. And the cupboards serve as a great place for keeping things dry. And of course, before you had central heating, it was very difficult to keep things like sugar and things such as sugar dry. And you could also hang herbs in them. The other one has some hooks for hanging herbs so that they would dry and so on. And since you kept your fireplace going all the time in the wintertime,
Right.
you know, it worked very well. Even through the late 1800s, people still did their weaving at home. This colony had a huge, big weaving barn, and men did almost all the weaving in the weaving barn. And there's a very good practical reason for that, because they wove blankets, throws, etc. And gentlemen have much wider arms and are able to easily weave a wider span than most women. So the women did the spinning and the men did the weaving. But at home, the women did the weaving as well, and they wove many products for their own home use. I'd like to point out the chairs to you because I don't know any place that has chairs quite like these. The chairs were made here in the Colony Workshop. They made a great many of them. They were put together, and many times without glue, because then they took strips of rawhide and they soaked them until they were very pliable and stretchy. Then they wove the seat, and as the seat dried, the rawhide shrinks. And because the way the chair is put together, the rawhide holds every single piece together, and you cannot get the chair apart without cutting the rawhide. Now, because these seats are like this, they all had cushions. And of course, the reason is apparent after you've been sitting in one for a little while.
Yeah.
This is an interesting piece. Once more, the spool bed type ornamentation. And it was given to young people when they were married and was used as a seat in the house. And it's not uncomfortable, although they would have put a pad on it of some sort, you know.
Right.
But it had two uses, because when the young couple had their first child, what they would do is take the entire bench and turn it around and push it flat against the wall with a mattress in it, and it would become a baby crib. And then when they didn't need it, they would turn it around again, and now they could use it for a seat.
Wow.
Nice and practical.
Yes.
This was the parents' bedroom. Once more, all the furniture was made here in the colony, and you see what I meant about having a cushion on the chairs.
Yeah.
Another spool bed. And you were talking about crazy quilts. This isn't exactly a crazy quilt, but this is the kind of quilt that you could make that used lots and lots of leftover pieces. And like the living room, later on this was all wallpapered. And it's hard for us today to understand that people had nothing to keep themselves amused, like television or anything else. But they did have one nice thing that we don't have. Isn't that pretty? Lovely piece of furniture. But people actually used to trade the spools back and forth, you know, that have the music. This one, I think, has 4 different songs on it. and we have them that actually have as many as a dozen. So if your Aunt Minnie has one with songs that you don't have, then you would trade back and forth so you'd have something new to listen to.
That's awesome.
This is the original family that lived here in the house.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just looking at that.
This was about as wide as you could weave at home on a home loom. And so you saved all your rags and your friends saved rags for you and so on. And when you wove it then, you wove it as long as the room that you wanted to cover. But it's only one strip, so what you did then was you tied it off at each end and wove another strip. And then it was the children's job to sit on the floor and lace them together. And of course, because these houses were all heated by wood, and wood makes a dirty smoke in the air, even if you do have a chimney.
Sure.
And so every spring you had spring house cleaning, and it was an important time. Everything came out of the house that could be moved, things were washed, things were scrubbed, and all of these rugs, one of the children would take scissors and they would unpick the whole thing, take it outside. It would either be washed if it was small enough or beaten thoroughly with a big rug beater.
Right.
And then when you brought them in, the rugs that had been in the middle were now put on the outside. The outside ones put in the middle so that they would wear evenly. This is a very unusual spinning wheel. We had a gentleman here from the Smithsonian who said, "We don't have a wheel like that in the Smithsonian." And we told him it was invented by the colony and it had a very specific purpose. Ordinarily, when you spin with a wheel like this, you have to walk away from the wheel. You know, you do this and then you just keep walking and spinning with your finger. But with this wheel, you could sit down and this went out and you had a big skein of wool underneath your arm. And then when you sat down, as you turned the wheel, you could bring it toward you and wind the wool, and then it would go away and you would spin and spin, and then it would come back toward you and you'd wind it on, and then with your finger. But you turn the wheel and the whole thing was so much easier because you could sit down. And you could spin very rapidly on it. So our former director was here that day and he said, "Oh, you don't? That's funny. We have 5 of them."
Oh.
Over here's the children's bedroom. And originally it had a divider down the middle, and it was 2 rooms. And this, of course, is a trundle bed. And I don't know whether you want to take a picture of it or not over here. Yeah, it was a trundle bed. But actually, it's it was a nice room. And the school kids absolutely love the fact that there is such a thing as a trundle bed. The girls had this room, the boys had that room. Then in a later generation, there was only George. He was the only child. And so they took down the partition in the middle, and this was his room, this whole big room. But heated with a little stove. But that was why there were twin tables sort of one on each side.
Yeah.
Look at those old blocks.
Oh yes, old blocks, a slate. And once more, 2 school beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, really a colony trademark. And one time I was waiting for my son when he was still in school up on Hawthorne Avenue. And I was waiting for him to get out of a music lesson, and I was standing in front of a secondhand store, and just to kill time I wandered in, and it was a school bed all disassembled. And I said, "Gee, that's interesting. How much do you want for it?" That was before I ever volunteered down here. And he said, $150. I said, "Oh, no, well." No, I guess not. Now I could just, I
Oh,
could
yeah.
kick myself
Oh,
around
yeah.
the block. The colony was well known for a number of things, their food particularly. And they had cookie cutters. And the cookie cutters became another one of the items that was well known here in the colony. And we now have duplicates of these that we sell.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
And it was nice to have a kitchen, where you could actually look out the window while you're working and so on. And here, once more, another dry sink.
Right.
Homemade soap. You had to make your own soap. You saved all your fat and used it to make soap. Good storage cabinet. I have no idea why no one's ever emptied it, but that's the last of the sauerkraut. They were big on sauerkraut and sausages.
A lot of them were descendants from.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Immigrants from Germany.
One of the things that I like to show the kids, however, is this tea kettle, because they say, well, boy, wouldn't you hate to have to lift that tea kettle? I say, yes, but you didn't carry it out to the well and fill it. You filled it with a pitcher. You took the tin pitcher out, filled it, brought it in, because it was made to sit on here, and then all you had to do was just tip it to pour.
Huh. We are outside the main building. This is the ox barn.
Yeah.
That's the main
Yeah.
museum building.
Walnut tree.
And a walnut tree. Take a step inside here.
The pictures that you see over here on the wall, are pretty much self-explanatory. This was the original colony store.
Oh,
This
wow.
is this building early on.
Wow.
This is the hotel, and the hotel has on the top of it a walkway. They were very famous for their band, and we'll see that when we go in the other room. And the band used to go up to the top of the hotel and play to greet visitors and so on. When the train came through, they would have special events, particularly for people arriving on the train. And this was called Dutchtown quite frequently because these people spoke German. And the food was supposed to be phenomenal. And people came for the day on the train. And there was a lovely park just up the street. And they would come and they'd have a big dinner. They would go to the park. They would have a lovely supper in the hotel and then go home on the train to Portland. And it was considered a very nice day's outing. This happens to be one of my favorite pieces of furniture. As I said, my husband and I used to collect museums, sort of. And this is the only time I have ever seen an armoire or chifforobe or whatever you want to call it that has swinging arms like this. And somebody here in the colony, and I have no idea who, invented it, and that means that you could hang about twice as many pieces of clothing as you could if you had just hooks or what have you.
These people were very inventive.
Oh, yes. As I said about the weaving, this is even more typical. They actually had to send to the Carolinas for the indigo, for the blue, but the red was raised here locally. They used to raise it in Canby, as a matter of fact. Now, if you were a boy and were good size and somewhere between 12 and 15, you probably were apprenticed to the carpenter. And this was a foot pump lathe. And it took two boys on each side, and then the master carpenter would stand in the middle with his chisel. And of course, and this goes around, the foot pump goes up and down. So they did it the opposite way around, they pumped it, and then this went around, spun the wood in the chuck, and the master carpenter then went along with his chisels.
Incredible.
And that, of course, is how all the school beds were.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite pieces of furniture, so I absolutely had to get this one down for you. Just a jiffy. Okay, this essentially was a kitchen center. And so you could cook, you could get your recipe and get all ready. And then you can slide this over and you can dip out the flour, dip out the sugar, pour it this way, get out some cornmeal and so on. Do your mixing in a big mixing bowl. And then when you're all done and you want to keep everything clean, you take the lid, close it down so that it becomes a nice, neat, tidy place to do your kitchen chores.
Okay, we're talking to Ellen McCloskey here at the Aurora Colony Museum, and out here on the beautiful grounds here behind the museum, and just wanting to find out kind of how you got involved with the museum and the wonderful exhibits that you have here.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, this has been a marvelous place for me because when I retired and I was very interested in history, we met together because they needed people who were volunteers and I had the ability then to be a volunteer. The first thing that I did when I came out here was to demonstrate spinning for the school children. Since then, I've been fortunate enough to bake bread, escort people on tours, and I think I have learned just as much as the people that I took on tours.
Some of the things that you do here, it seems to me it's like a forgotten art, you know, as far as spinning, baking bread the old-fashioned way, everything from scratch, and you know, it's really great that there's still a handful of folks that know how to do it and can pass that on so that the future generations can see how it was done.
Originally, there was a group of people who broke away from the Rappist colony in Pennsylvania, and they decided that they wanted to form a group of their own, and they decided to call themselves the Aurora Colony. And they came first to Missouri, where they established an extremely successful small town, and as their population began to grow, and it was during the time of great westward expansion in the early 1850s, the head of the colony, Dr. Kyle, decided to send a group of people out here to see whether it was possible to establish a branch colony. Well, it was, and it was so successful that later he brought a great many of the other people of the town of Bethel out here. When they got to this area in the Willamette Valley, they discovered that there were two mills on the Pudding River. One of them was a small grist mill to grind grain, and the other was a lumber mill. Well, that meant that now you had the essence of a small colony to start with, because you could grind your own grain and you could build your own houses with the lumber that you could cut there. So they established it right here on the banks of the Pudding River, and 5 different groups of people came in wagon trains over the course of the 5 years between 53 and 58, 60, somewhere in there. And they were people, not all of them farmers. There were craftsmen of various sorts. They had quite a group of weavers, and incidentally the men did the weaving, and the ladies did the spinning. And they had a spinning building, and they had a huge weaving building, and then there were the craftsmen that were the carpenters, and they made very, very fine wooden furniture.
Yes, as we've seen, a lot of the things here in the colony are very original. The entire town is a historic landmark, so there's a lot to see here.
Also, here in Aurora, you'll find a tremendous collection of antique stores. There are very nice places to eat, and of course the countryside here is very lovely, and just short distance away we have orchards and so on. You can make a very nice day coming to visit Aurora.
I can see that. Well, I think that's gonna do it. So I want to thank you, Ellen. Thank you for putting up with us this afternoon.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure, and I'd like to invite everyone who watches your program to come and join us here at Aurora, particularly in October when we have our big quilt show.
Quilt show, yes. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Road Trips. Hope you enjoyed your tour of the Aurora Colony Museum, and got a couple of ladies we want to thank here for putting up with us this afternoon and giving us a personal tour.
Yes.
want to thank Joan, here at the museum, that made the arrangements with me so that we could come in and enjoy the museum. And special thanks to Ellen, who led us around the site here and gave us a wonderful tour and gave us some insight on what happened here way back in the day.
Oh yeah, incredible.
Yes, it said we're really fortunate to have this kind of history here, living history. We can go back, to take a step back in time and see what it was like. And I think one of the best displays I've seen.
Oh, most definitely,
in this state anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, I want to thank Ellen and Joan for letting us be a part of the history here. And with that, I think that's going to do it. Definitely, there's a lot more to check out here in town. Aurora is a decent-sized community, but still on a small scale, and almost every building here is historic. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
As Ellen told us, there's places to eat. You can check out antique shops.
Which I'd love to do.
Make a fun day out of it. So definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
So with that, that's going to do it. I want to thank everyone out there for watching, and for Road Trips, I'm Todd Hilton.
And I'm Mark Johnson.
And we'll see you next time for the next edition of Nowhere Videos
Road Trips!